Evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Monday, May the 1st, 2023, 7 p.m. to order and to acknowledge we're on the traditional territory of the Chehalis. Next order of business, please.
The next order is introduction of late items.
I have 3 items and I would like to get a council resolution. And the first 2 items are regarding some employment changes. And the last is the introduction of an additional letter to be added to correspondence. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. So I have some sad news. It is with deep regret that I acknowledge the Chief Financial Officer, Scott Schultz, has offered his resignation to the village. It's a sad day for the village. He will be dearly missed. Scott is not only our Chief Financial Officer, he is also our Manager of IT and our Human Resources Manager. The last 6 months, he has kept extremely busy dealing with all these matters. I wish I could not allow your resignation, sir, but I understand the situation, and I understand you're going to the private industry. It's quite different from the municipal industry. Any government can be very challenging. When I first met you, you brought forward a financial plan. It was a financial plan that was presented to the public here. The plan was so. The budgets can become as complicated as you want to make them, or as simple as you want to make them. You had the ability to turn something difficult into something simple that the people here could understand. In fact, I had a list of questions I was ready to ask, and every single one of my questions was answered in your presentation. You already knew what the people wanted to hear. Just an outstanding job. Again, it's with great sadness that I of this resignation. Thank you, sir. The next item, actually, I wouldn't mind if I could. He deserves. Thank you. The next item is another an employment, and I wish to bring to the public's knowledge that the Deputy Chief Administrative Office Corporate Officer has also acknowledged her retirement. So I wish her well in her future. And the last item here is just a letter regarding some parking concerns on McCombs. And I would just like to add it to under section correspondence, section 8, item H. Next item, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is approval of the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Adoption of the pre-closed meeting minutes of March 30th be adopted.
Thank you. Just. Do I have a mover for item I? Moved by Councillor. Yeah, moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Errors or remissions? I see none. I actually have a question on this one. So the closed meetings, and we got 1, 2, 3 in a row here. So how do we adopt, how does council adopt minutes of a meeting when in fact all that's on there is the opening and the closing. It was my understanding from the closed meetings that approval of the agenda of the previous closed meeting would be discussed and council would have an opportunity to see those minutes and they would be able to see the resolutions, motions, and ensure that those were accurate before they voted on them. So I'm confused of why they would be here now. Again, I would think that those adoptions of the minutes would have been done in the next closed meeting of council. I understand that because these are all closed meetings, and I think it's important that the public also understand what happens in a closed meeting. Once it's a closed meeting, whatever's discussed in that closed meeting stays in a closed meeting unless there's a resolution from council to bring it out into the public's eyes. There is nothing on this agenda here on these council minutes that show any of the items that were discussed, even if it was the headings. So council has decided to not release any of these details to the public, other than the only thing that would be something that's different that wasn't already out to the public is the attendance of who was present and who wasn't. So again, I'm confused with why we're here. The other item I think is important for the public to understand is in closed meetings, that once a meeting is closed and council discusses it, there's a gag order on council. Again, unless there's a resolution, council can't discuss it. So I can't even ask council a question on any of these pre-closed meetings here. So I'm in a bit of a pickle here. So I don't really want to call them out of order, but basically, I don't understand why we're adopting a blank set of minutes. Maybe our chief administrative officer, if she could kind of help me out on this, please. Thank you.
Mayor Wood, these are pre-closed open meeting minutes that under the community charter, if you're going into a closed meetings, you have to go into open meeting to advise what sections under the community charter that the meeting's being closed under. This is how we've done it in the city of Mission. And so when I came here, this is the way for me to differentiate between the regular meetings, the pre-closed meetings, and the in-camera minutes. The sections are noted under the community charter of what we are closing the meeting under, and the time that the meeting was called to the order and the time that the open meeting was adjourned at. And this is what is required under the Local Government Act before you can go into a closed meeting.
Thank you for that explanation. That makes quite that's good sense to me. So in the closed meeting, so there is actually no closed meeting minutes that are being adopted here. Is that correct?
That's correct. They would not come to an open meeting.
Unless there was a resolution from council to bring it to an open meeting.
That's correct. And we have released closed meeting resolutions before.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start over on this one then. Item A, please.
That the special pre-closed meeting minutes of March 30th, 2023 be adopted.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bidell, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Next item, please.
That the special pre-closed meeting minutes of April 4th, 2023 be adopted.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? Errors and omissions? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed it. Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Yes, Mayor Wood, there is a change to the April 17th and 18 minutes. At the adjournment time, I put down PM and it should have said AM. So the resolution would be that the special pre-closed meeting minutes of April 17th and 18th be adopted as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Buckley, second by Councillor Jackson. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, ready to call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
That the regular council meeting minutes of April 17th, 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Bidell, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Errors or omissions? Seeing none. Ready to call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Next item of business, please.
Business arising from the minutes.
Seeing none. Next order of business, please.
Next is the consent agenda, and there's nothing on it.
Thank you.
So the next item would be delegations and petitions. And the first delegation would be Brian Sabo from BDO Canada regarding the audit findings.
Is Brian? Oh, he's on Zoom. There you are.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you very much. Also disappointed to hear of the resignation of Mr. Schultz. We've had a very good experience with him ourselves over the course of the last several months in pulling the audit together. And before I get into the report, I guess I would like to thank Scott and all the help that he's provided to us through the audit. It's definitely a collaborative effort to get to the point that we're at today, where I can present this report. So thanks very much to Mr. Schultz on having worked with us through that. So if I can, I'm going to share my screen, which is the presentation that has been provided to you as part of your package. So is everybody seeing my screen now? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm going to flip through the first couple of pages of introduction and table of contents. And so just to let you know that the materiality that we used for the audit was unchanged from the preliminary assessment that was part of our planning. And so the overall materiality, and this is a number that's used primarily for capital purposes, is $739,000. And materiality for operating purposes was $142,000. So just to clarify what those two things mean, it's not that we don't look at items below those amounts, but they are a starting point for informing our audit procedures, and they go into the calculation of statistical samples that we do, and they inform the variance analyses that we do throughout the course of the audit. We would also, if there were any errors that were above those amounts, either individually or collectively, we would not be able to sign off the audit opinion unless they were corrected. So I can report that that's obviously not the case, because here we are and we're ready to sign the auditor's opinion. Status of the audit, we are substantially complete. We can't sign off the audit report until council has approved the financial statements. And once that happens, we will also obtain the signed management representation letter, and also update our subsequent events procedures to today's date to ensure that there's nothing that has occurred that might impact the amounts or disclosures in the financial statements. The audit findings, these are the items that we generally look at in most municipal audits. And the first one being management override of controls, and not that this has happened, it's just a risk that we have to consider in every audit. It's not unique to the village, and it's not unique to the local government circumstances either. It's just all audits have to be considered, because management is generally in a position where if they wanted to, they could override the system of internal controls and record transactions in order to manipulate the records or to cover up other transactions that have occurred. So our procedures around this generally revolve around examination of journal entries and looking at significant transactions for both their business purpose and to ensure that there's appropriate documentation behind them. And so we can report that all of these procedures were undertaken and there were no issues that were noted. The second required item for us to look at is the consideration of the risk of fraudulent revenue recognition. And what that means, again, is management is in a position that they could manipulate the revenue amounts in the financial statements. But with a local government, this would be rather difficult to do, because most of your revenue, or a large portion of your revenue, comes from taxation, which is of course set by council. And the other income streams are not particularly susceptible to manipulation. And the overriding factor is that there's really little incentive for management to do so in any case. So we rebut that risk, but we do examine all of the revenue streams in a fair amount of detail to ensure that they are recorded appropriately. So all the testing in this area was executed as planned and no issues to report. The other areas that we look at are staff salaries and employee future benefits. And the employee future benefits in particular involves future looking assumptions and estimates. And so it's also a complex accounting area that requires a lot of estimation and actually the reliance on external experts, being the actuaries. And so we do communicate with the actuaries, ensure that they are independent from the organization, and review their report and make sure that it ties into the numbers that fall into the financial statements. Again, all the items, all the testing that was done in this area have been completed without any issues to report. The staff salaries are one of the largest expenses of the organization, and so we do a fair amount of control testing and actual transactional testing as well, and analyzing the relationships from one year to the other and within the organization. Again, all the testing in this area was done and no issues to be reported. Internal control matters on page 8. If there were any significant weaknesses in internal controls, we would be required to report them to you. We can report that there were no significant deficiencies that were noted. We will have a management letter that's in the last stages of completion that will be provided to management with some minor observations and recommendations, and those that can be obtained by council from management once it's completed. We're required to report to you any unadjusted and adjusted differences that are noted, and there was one item that was unadjusted as a result of our audit. It was just a timing error between accounts receivable and government transfers. It didn't have any impact on our audit report, and as you can see, it's a fairly minor item that will be self-correcting in fiscal 2023. There were no adjusted differences that were noted during the course of our audit, so there's nothing to report on this page. And this is just a list of other required communications, and if any of these items did arise during the course of the audit, we would be required to report the specifics to you. None of these items did come to our attention, and so there's nothing to report on this page either. The last several pages are informational in purposes, a pictorial of our audit process, including a new auditing standard that was implemented in the current year. Our approach to the audit, including the digital use of digital tools that we employed during the course of our audit. I will point out as well, as if you have this document in electronic form, all of these red boxes are actually hyperlinks to our website. So I do invite you to click on them and have a look at what we report on audit quality and any other areas of the report as well. This is information on our digital audit suite, which we call APT. it's available to all team members, no matter where they are, so we can collaborate, whether we're together all in a room or working remotely. And also our secure portal that we use to exchange documents back and forth between ourselves and management to ensure that there is a secure means of communication and that it's not exposed to or subject to cyber attacks. And so we do use this portal with respect to the document exchange for your audit as well. And then some resources for yourselves. Again, all of these red boxes are hyperlinks, so I would invite you to access any of the documents that might interest you here, including the sustainability articles. It's obviously top of mind for all organizations. So again, I would invite you to have a look at some of these articles. And in the appendices are our representation letter. This will get management to sign as of today's date to indicate that they, in writing, have provided to us all of the information that we've requested and that it's all been accurate, that nothing's been withheld from us. And then in Appendix B is our independence letter, which we're required to provide to you every year to confirm our independence from the organization. And so that appears in Appendix B as well. So with that, I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have any questions? Councilors, any questions? Councilor Jackson?
Thank you, Wish. I don't have any direct questions. I'd just like to say that this is one of the first audits or financial statements that I've looked at in my lifetime of working that have been done the way I really think they should have been done. So hats off to the audit firm and to Scott in putting everything together that made it much, much easier to go through and find out how well we are doing in Harrison, and we are doing quite well. I take my hat off and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from anybody? Councilor Facio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to thank you to the auditor, much appreciated for your presentation.
Thank you.
I actually have just a question here for you. Help me out on understanding here with the auditing, with our purchasing policy. Like, where does the auditing get involved? Are they involved at all? And the reason I ask this, I mean, it's council and mayor's responsibility to provide the direction, which ensures that our purchasing policy. So is our purchasing policy something that is looked at in this audit process?
It is in the context of the control features. So we do test the internal controls. And one of the internal controls would be adherence to the purchasing policies with respect to contracting. So we do select a sample of items during the year and ensure that the policies are being followed. And that's part of our control testing.
Do you provide feedback if there was errors or areas that you would see that council and mayor should be changing our policy so that we actually have better control features, or are you satisfied with what we have, or do you have any comment on that?
Well, having looked at the thresholds that are used for various levels of approval, I don't see that they're out of line for an organization of your size.
Great. Thank you. Just one other question. And that's as far as the check signing process. So I know as mayor that I usually sign, I'm the last person to sign the checks. So is it a normal process that in fact the mayor gets involved with this, or how do other municipalities work? Can you comment on that at all? Or is that even part of your?
I would say it's quite rare that the mayor or a member of council would actually sign checks for the organization. That's usually a management function, but that's really between council and management. I wouldn't go so far as to recommend whether or not that should be the case, but I would say that it's not a common occurrence.
Great, thank you very much. No further questions here. Thank you, Brian, very much. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you answering those questions for me. Thanks again.
All right, thank you very much.
Next order of business, please.
The next order is a delegation Gabrielle Thornton regarding council meetings accommodating disabilities and council meeting location change.
Take your time.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Gabriel Thornton. I live at 336 Chestnut Avenue. I am here tonight to bring attention to a subject of importance. There are some residents that come to the meetings that have certain disabilities, one of them being hearing impaired. I would like to draw attention to the council meetings as there seems to be quite a lack of allowances made for the hearing impaired. When I go home, I have a special black box that I can attach to my TV and hear parts of the meetings that I missed on YouTube. Unfortunately, some residents do not have the opportunity to address or question or concerns that were in the previous meeting due to a bylaw that states only questions can be asked that pertain to the current week's agenda. This line needs to be changed to allow all residents to have their say. I understand all municipalities have this in their bylaws, but bylaws can be changed and should be changed as not to discriminate against human rights. Zoom is no answer as it is unreliable, and many do not have access to it, nor is it an intuitive tool. A very good friend of mine mentioned to me that remote electronic viewing is not a suitable substitute for being there in person. My concern is this, is against our human rights and discrimination against our disabilities. Some cities and municipalities have already making adjustments, and here is hoping the village does the same. My next concern is the ongoing discussion regarding returning the council meetings to the village office. Residents have written letters, made our voices heard that we want to continue the meetings at Memorial Hall. We, the taxpayers, paid to have the hall built. Therefore, the residents should have top priority to use it. Money could be better spent on equipment, equipping the hall with the upgrade system so the hearing impaired at least have a chance to hear content of said meetings. The village office is not an appropriate place as it is cramped. It does not accommodate more than 20 people, thus taking away the rest of the residents' rights to be at the meetings. Concerns were mentioned, such as safety and healthy issues. The hall gives people with varying disabilities the opportunity to access the front entrance, and there are ample parking spots readily available for the residents. There is no parking available for residents at the village office that have wheelchair or mobility issues, which makes this an access and safety issue. The other concern is our health, also made very clear by the residents' letters and comments. COVID is not gone. Over 20 people a day are dying from this virus. Seniors seem to be the hardest hit, and they make up the majority of the village. Some residents have weakened immune systems due to their health issues, and being crammed into a small space in the village opens them up to the possibility of catching the virus or any other virus in the air. The hall is a large space where we can practice social distancing. The village does not give us this opportunity. Everyone has the right to be at the meetings, but there needs to be reasonable compromise for our safety and our health. There are serious issues that need to be considered, addressed, and discussed with residents' participation. No one person likes to be left out or discriminated against for issues that are beyond their control. But if we have learned anything, there's always solutions to any problem, as long as we work together to solve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come tonight. I'm going to wait for you to get back to your seat. Yes, thank you very much for taking the time to come here tonight to express your thoughts. Do any counselors have any questions or comments that they'd like to make? I'll just make one comment to it. I'm actually myself, I was born with a hearing impairment. I have great difficulty in hearing. And I use a lot of face recognition so that I can understand what is being said. I understand the sound system in here has a lot to be desired. And I would hope that we either upgrade the sound system here or we do something. Again, for people like myself that have a difficult time in hearing the conversation. There's a number of people that come forward to this council meeting here, and they have to equally ask the question and run to the back so they can hear the answer. Not really the right way for us to be able to do that. So I hope that we can improve on that as mayor and council. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next delegation is John Allen, re-council meeting location concerns.
Good evening. John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. Let me start by saying that I support what the last speaker said. And I've done a little research in this, Mr. Mayor, and I find that the Ombudsman of BC produced a special report in September 2012. And the Ombudsman or Ombudsperson, if you prefer to call her that, had some leading comments. One of which was that one of the cornerstones of open and transparent government in British Columbia is the requirement for local governments to conduct meetings that are open and accessible to the public. Providing citizens with the opportunity to observe and engage their elected representatives fosters trust and confidence in decision-making processes and allows for meaningful participation and contribution from informed citizens. She goes on to say in her foreword that the Ombudsman strives to uphold openness, transparency, and accountability, and because these are essential to ensuring that citizens are treated fairly and reasonably by public authorities. Her report runs to 26 pages, and I'll spare you reading the whole thing, but she starts out by pointing out that under section 116 of the Community Charter, is a very simple statement. It's one sentence. 1161 says the mayor is the head and chief executive officer. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong section. That's 116. It says that in section 89, the one that precedes all the palaver about closed meetings, it says a meeting of council must be open to the public except as provided in this division. And it says must, it doesn't say may, it doesn't say should, it's mandatory. So in order for a meeting to be open to the public, it falls to the administration of the village to ensure that the facilities for such a meeting are adequate to provide for all those who wish to attend. We have in recent months had up to 100 people here at our community hall to attend and observe council meetings. The previous speaker mentioned that there was only room for 20 in the old council chamber at the village office. I would say that that is a stretch. I think it's comfortably 15, maybe 12. And that is completely inadequate. In my opinion, it falls on the shoulders of the mayor, who is the chief executive officer of the municipality, to make provision for the village to comply with the statute. And that compliance means ensuring that the hall is big enough to accommodate all those who wish to attend. During my time as mayor, we had occasions when a lot of people showed up for the council meeting in that same small chamber. Actually, it was even a smaller chamber. It was the room at what used to be the Visitor Info Center, which was demolished for the Sasquatch Museum. And my arrangement at that time with the school board was that the night caretaker at the school, at my request, would open up the gym, and we moved the meeting across the street and held it in the gym. So I think that we've come through a couple of years of COVID. It's not over. people are getting it again. They're getting a different strain of it. They're getting long COVID. There's still people dying in hospitals of COVID. And I think that we would be foolish in the extreme to put people at risk by cramming them into that small chamber again. And so I would urge that we not do that. This is our community hall. It was built for community purposes. And the prime responsibility of the municipality, I believe, is to provide a place for the public to come and observe the council meetings in progress. So my suggestions are, and I would remind you that it was probably 2 or 3 years ago that I first came to you and said, we need to stop meeting at the village office. We need to meet here. We need to social distance. So I'm carrying on that same theme, and I'm glad that you accepted my advice on that occasion. And I had anticipated in saying that this would be some passing thing like a flu bug, and it would be here and gone in 6 months. It's not gone, and it's not going away. Every time that we get a shot or we get a touch of COVID and we think we've got immunity, we're wrong, because the virus is changing quicker than we can keep up with it, and new strains are going to continue to infect us. So I think that the new reality is COVID is going to be here for many years to come, and we need to govern ourselves in a way that protects public health. And that is not to go into a small chamber, crowded, poorly ventilated, but to stay as much as we can in this facility. My suggestion is that you firstly improve the audio by adding at least one more speaker on that side of the hall, which would be good. Secondly, I would suggest that we might have a smaller council table and bring the public in a little bit closer so we can actually maybe hear you, because not everybody can hear very well back here. And my third suggestion is that for those who wish to attend and to wear masks, and I don't see any here tonight, but I have seen them here in the past, that we do have a section at one side with a good speaker for those who wish to add a level of protection, and by wearing a mask can sit with the masked people in that section rather than sit with the people like myself who is not wearing a mask. So those are my suggestions for you, that we recognize the reality of COVID as being a long-term health risk. As the lady said, it's a high risk to our population, being an aging population, and I'm, I suppose, one of those. And I think that we need to recognize that. And I think it becomes the responsibility of you, Mr. Mayor, being responsible for public safety, including health, to make the necessary arrangements that we do this. I know that an argument has been raised that the Harrison Festival should get priority and we should move out to accommodate whatever they're doing. I started the festival with Ron Gadsby and Ron Carroll in order to create off-season business in the village. And we only started with the July date to give it an incubation period. It was supposed to move to the spring or the fall, and it hasn't moved. And it's great to have the performances, but it's more important in my mind that we have a healthy democracy in the village. The festival's argument for having the exclusive use of the hall was that it's too much trouble to reset the hall after a Sunday night performance, to reset it for this. Well, I'm sorry, but all of us who have rented the hall in the past have stayed behind afterwards, moved the furniture, moved the chairs, and left the hall ready for the next user. So I totally reject the fact that it's impossible to have both the festival and the council meeting using this same room. In the summertime, when they're set up for their theater performances, you could actually use that for the council meetings. You have the PA, you have the seats, you just don't have a funny man or musician in front of you, but it's essentially the same type of a facility. So I would urge you to make the effort to continue to hold our public council meetings here in this community hall for the foreseeable future, at least for the next year. If something happens miraculously and COVID disappears, you should revisit it. But by that time, I think we should be well established. This is an important part of the village's social life and democratic life. We should continue to meet in this facility. Thank you for listening so attentively. Thank you. And I'm open to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Any questions for any of the councillors, comments? No, seeing none, I thank you, sir, for coming with your comments, concerns, recommendations. They're appreciated. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is correspondence. There's 8 pieces of correspondence. Would you wish me to read them aloud?
No, just the headings, I think. And then I'm going to put them all together for receipt.
All right, the first one is regarding the boat launch daily parking rates for 2023. The second is regarding grant funding for dike upgrade. The third is swimming lessons registration in the District of Kent. The next is Canadian Award for financial reporting and no parking signage on Macoons. And the next is an invitation to the Lower Fraser Floodplain Forum. G is safety and security plan for the village OCP. And H would be the email dated April 28th from Phil Cruikshanks regarding parking on Macombs.
Thank you. So do I have a mover for receipt?
Move for receipt, Mr.
Actually, moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor for receipt? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Next order of business is business arising from correspondence.
Mayor.
Thank you. It's Councillor Facio.
Yes, I'd like to discuss page 17, 27, 31, and the late item of H. The last one that you put forward.
Which one? Sorry, sir.
Page 17, the daily boat launch. Page 27.
So item A.
Sorry, A, D,
Let's do one at a time.
A,
Let's just do one at a time.
okay,
Item A, sir.
page 17. In regards to the cabin users and the boat launch, just a correction there that Harrison does not receive any taxes from the District of Kent or a portion of. The increase of $8, of course, as we or some of us may know that don't know, a portion of that does go to the Harrison Search and Rescue, who spend many hours and days out on the lake. And I know in the past they've had to go out to these cabin users for rescues as well. Our dock has just recently been replaced to the cost of the village, and cabin users can use the float plane dock only for day use if they're going to come to do some shopping or whatever else. So I see no reason why the increase of $20 should make a tremendous to be unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion on this same letter? Seeing none, go ahead, Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. And D, as you already made comments about, I would just like to reiterate a big thank you to Scott Schultz, who has received the Canadian and American Award for financial planning, and congratulations to him on receiving that. A great achievement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Schultz.
Any other business, councillors?
And,
Sorry, Councillor Facio.
oh, sorry, Mr.
Which item?
And E, page 31. the complaint of there being no parking signs on McCombs Drive. I did notice that driving down there, that these homes do have double driveways and garages that can accommodate 2 cars on their driveways, and I'm not sure how many they can put inside their garages, but at least one, I would think. And they are constantly parked on the street. Whether there's a problem or not, there always seem to be quite a few cars are parked on the street. And I mean, when you buy a home, wherever that may be in the community, you should assess where you're going to live and how much room you're going to have for your vehicles or toys or trailers, whatever the case may be. And, but it's, I find it a bit difficult when they tend to blame the councils for not living out, or more so for the developer. But the property lines, of course, do vary from Harrison Lake Estates to the new subdivision there. For whatever reason, there must be a reason for that. So personally, I don't see, and I believe that council has discussed in the past that we will be looking at some point, probably for the budget next year, at putting cycle lanes on Eagle and McCombs, make it more cycle friendly as well. Thank you on that one.
Thank you. Just before you move on, Councillor Badel, just on the same letter then.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Wood. Just a little bit of background, those no parking signs in that area were installed more or less for a safety and a traffic flow issue. Vehicles that were traveling southbound along McCombs were often required to travel in the northbound lane to avoid collision with any of those parked cars between Schooner and Emerson Cove. I also had the opportunity to view Emerson Cove. And I do want to point out that Emerson Cove does have 8 visitor parking stalls within the complex. And there's also, in my opinion, adequate parking south of those 2 complexes in on McCombs Drive. I just want to also, to me, it's important that those no parking signs stay. There was quite a discussion in council last term regarding it. And there were also concerns with people who use McCombs to commute on a daily basis, that it was severely impacting that traffic flow. So, thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Councillor Badel. Councillor Buckley, just one sec, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Pastor, can you just turn your microphone off?
Oh,
please?
sorry.
Just the echo. Thank you. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mayor Wood. I too agree with my fellow councillors that spoke to this issue. I have witnessed the road does get a little narrower down there and unfortunately there has been a death on that road a little bit south of that, where a young boy passed away after being struck. But I also feel too that with the younger families moving to town and kids do dart out and there's bicyclers always going south on that road back and forth. If you do get congestion on both sides of the road, there could be something that would happen, and that would be very unfortunate. I do understand that parking is a problem, but I would rather err on the side of safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jackson, did you?
Thank you. The only thing I'd like to see is referred to the committee of the whole, because it's going to become a real problem in the future. Too many cars are parking there right now, and they shouldn't be, and some of the cars are parked are people who live within the subdivision. But it was inevitable that this was going to happen, because there should have been parking provided inside the development for people to have excess parking, but that's what happened. So I would like to see this go to the committee of the whole and do something before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to add to that. I had an opportunity to speak with each one of these. There's two letter writers for the same item, so I actually, they're both on the same subject. So I'm gonna just kind of include them together, but one is from Emerson Cove and the other one is from Schooner Way, but it's exactly the same issue with the parking. So just so I think it's important for everyone to understand that there's never been parking that's been permitted on that would be the west side of McCombs. There was no signs there before. There was a yellow line down the road. There's not enough room for a vehicle to park there and still allow vehicles to travel down that road. It's a main road. It's part of our evacuation route out. I've heard many concerns from the residents that go through that. I would say at least half the residents of this village probably go through that area at some time in a given week. So the people that have been parking there, they were actually asked to move some time ago, and they seemed to disappear and then they showed back up again. So what really has resulted is there's no change in council's direction. Council hasn't changed anything here. This is a direction which is coming from our administration, from our operations, and they're just doing their job of enforcing an area where there's no parking. And what was unfortunate for the bylaw was that there was no signs there. So it made it a little more confrontational for bylaw to deal with it. So bylaw, I believe, suggested that some signs were put up and a decision was made by the administration, again, operations, to put up a few signs just to let the public know that in fact there is no parking there. So that being said, with that, what the two and it's two gentlemen, what they are suggesting, they understand that, and I think it's quite clear to them now. So hopefully that issue is dealt with and it's gone to bed. But what they are asking is for council to change the parking on the east side in that same section between almost Alder and the cell tower there, where the parking, or sorry, where the gravel walkway is and to allow parking on that side of the McCombs. So that is my understanding that the council direction from council and as far as parking, and that comes from the direction comes from the parking master plan. And the parking master plan, I think, it designated that side as no parking. So if council wishes to remove that from a no parking zone, then I believe it would require a resolution from council. So I guess the question is council interested in opening up the side, the east side of McCombs, basically between Alder and the cell tower for parking on the, again, on the east side? So do I have a seconder for that? I would move that motion. Seeing none, that motion fails. Councillor Facio, thank you. I had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, through you, Mr. I just wanted to comment, Mayor Wood, that I think if you had vehicles parked on the east side where the new gravel walkway is, then I think it's even going to be more dangerous for people who are walking along there with their, you know, the families with their pushchairs or those with their dogs, they're just going for a walk. That I think it'll make it more dangerous actually for the pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facio, did you have another letter or was that the rest on your list?
I was just going to say that I think that the parking signs are great, but I think they should be extended to from Alder to the other side of Harrison Lake Estates, because that's where the cars are now parking. They're moving on to the next block where Harrison Lake Estates is. I'll leave that in the hands of the operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Did any other business arising from correspondence? Seeing none, I had a couple here. Just bear with me one second. Parking. That was item B. And that's the news release dated April 17th, 2023 from the UBCM. And that was regarding the grant funding for the dike upgrades, which was page 19. So I'm actually very pleased to see the federal government provide us with a grant for close to $6 million to upgrade our dike. I think the public safety is one of our #1 priorities. It's a long-term commitment. It has everything to do with climate change, disaster around the world here. I understand that there's all kinds of comments, questions, concerns, fears of this dike, what it's going to look like. They're all great questions. My understanding as part of this process, and I believe it's been budgeted for, and that is to go into a public consultation some sort. So all of these questions and concerns and stuff can be addressed. Basically the project is going to involve the dike, which is going to go from mountainside to mountainside, and it will be raised somewhere in the area of 1 meter. And that 1 meter in some areas is quite significant. In other areas, it may not be. So it's been divided into 6 zones. And I think it's really important for the people to see how the 6 zones are broken down, and as far as how it was funded, or so not funded, but how the proposal for the grant funding for this project, how it was, how the application was. So we can quite easily see the priority, and again, the cost of doing each one. So one of the first priorities, according to the consultant, was to do the Rendell Park area. Whether or not that's the area that we want to start with or not, again, I think that's a question that we're a long ways away from. I think we need a lot of consultation on that. And I'm going to skip all the way over to the other side of the village, which is where our wastewater treatment plant and the water source, our hot springs water source is. So that dike road has been contemplated to be raised by 2 meters, which is a significant increase. And there's also significant works that would be done to improve the riprap around the wastewater treatment plant itself, and I believe even increasing the height of the actual wall around that. We have lots of questions that we really have to ask. I mean, I'm an infrastructure nutcase, I guess, per se. You know, I like to look big and then start to work towards a goal. It's not going to break us, but if we start big with a plan, we can start picking away at it over the many years that we have. But before we start spending all of this money on upgrading the sewage treatment plant and the road that goes out there, I mean, it's millions of dollars. I think that's 1/3 of the project cost. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, is that even the right place where the sewage treatment plant is going to be in the future years with the growth that's going to happen in this village? Is it able to be sustainable where it is? So there's all kinds of questions, and I really encourage all of the questions that I hear. I love to hear people's comments again, because every time I hear a comment, it asks another question, and it just makes you think of it in a different way. So I'm really looking forward to this project, and this was again from Brad Viss. I have been pushing behind the scenes for this project for quite a number of years now. So again, I think that this is an extremely important project for the protection of this village, because the failure of not doing it could be catastrophic, and I don't think that we want to head down that path. Any other discussion on that, Councillor Vidal?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I just feel it's the right thing to do to certainly point out that the grant application for this occurred last term and was certainly endorsed by previous council for the grant. So I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to both our operations manager, Tyson Cook, and our former senior staff who got the ball rolling on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business arising from the correspondence? Seeing none, next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mary Wood. The next order of business is reports of councilors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions.
Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. 19th of April, we had the Earth Day cleanup, our local school, the Harrison School, some 100 students and teachers did a walk around the village. And they were treated to a lunch at the resort and spa, and juices and water were donated by Shoppers Drug Mart in Agassiz. It was a great turnout by the children. They had a wonderful time and hope to do this again next year. But I would ask through you, Mr. Mayor, that a letter of thank you goes out to the Harrison Resort and Spa and to Shoppers Drug Mart, who supplied the juices and the water for the children.
Thank you.
At the regional, at the Let's, I attended the Let's Not Aquatic Center walk Saturday the 22nd, support Mayor Pranger and the other runners, one being from Harrison Hot Springs and Agassiz, and also from the Fraser Valley Regional District. The CAO was there as well. And it was a great performance by those walkers who made it all the way to Chilliwack. Unbelievable how they did it. I congratulate all of them. But yours truly and Councillor Vidal and a couple of our local citizens made it all the way to Popcom, where we said goodbye and wished them all the best. At the Fraser Valley Regional District, there was a presentation by the Forestry Road Access to Trails by Randall Dayton, Resource Manager for Chilliwack Natural Resource District. Basically, he was just doing it was a 10-minute presentation with 14 minutes of questions. And did basically a presentation on how the rural forestry roads are maintained, how much they cost, how they're being abused by the people who visit them, and with the shootings and drugs and garbage and vehicles that are left abandoned there. So they're looking at sending a letter to the Solicitor General regarding more funding for more enforcement to try and maintain those rural roads and keep them clean. A suggestion was made they should be closed when fire hazards are about, so that's something to be discussed. But overall, just the maintenance of the roads. Some roads are used for recreation, others are used just for industrial uses, and there's quite several millions of dollars that are spent to maintain those roads. The other thing that came out at the regional district was the downloading by the province and our RCMP detachments when they have to attend to the crashes and fatal accidents on our highways, that they're pulled away from the municipalities to deal with these. And sometimes there's not enough resources left in the municipality to deal with the day-to-day or evening to evening cases that may happen. So again, a letter is going to the Solicitor General to bring that to their attention. The last, what did I leave out? Coons, that's smart. The last, by invitation, I did attend the RCMP ball at the resort and spa on Saturday. It was a great turnout by some 300 RCMP officers and their guests. It was an evening of learning. They were celebrating the 150 years of the RCMP. And it was a wonderful evening. And much to my surprise, Superintendent Lee and Sergeant Mike Sargent honored me with a presentation for my many years of service to the community, and more so for my 14 years as the mayor. And I was very honored and taken back to this beautiful presentation that they gave to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I also had the pleasure of attending the Earth Day and helping out with a little bit of the hot dogs at the resort. I have to comment that my favorite quote of the day was from grade 2, who, when I asked him, "So how did it go?" And the grade 2 reported, "Well, I couldn't find much trash, but I sure saw pretty flowers." April 19th, I attended the Kent Harrison Joint Emergency Planning meeting in Kent. And I just wanted to read a little bit from the Emergency Program Coordinator's report regarding snowpack and freshet. From January to April, the snow basin in BC have remained below normal level. And as of April 1st, currently it sits at 88% of normal. La Nina conditions existed during the fall and winter of 2022-23, which led to late season snowfalls and delayed onset snow melt. Snow basin reports of normal in this period are as follows. January was 82%, February 79%, March was 94%, and April was 88%. And I believe as per last year, as the freshet season is now beginning, that I should be receiving weekly updates on the freshet along with stream flow amounts, which usually originate up in Hope. Between the months of January and April, there have been 2 atmospheric rain weather events. Both hazards did trigger high stream flow warnings for the local area. Both events had very minimal impact to the river systems, due in part to seasonally low levels of the river. I can't say we're in great shape. I can't say we're in good shape. My experience has always been with freshet. It depends how quickly temperatures rise and how quickly the snow melts. So I will continue to monitor through the emergency planner and provide council with any updates.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal, I don't want to interrupt you, but if I could, on that same report, there was another item on there, and I think because we hear wildfire, and I know there was a bit of a report there on the wildfire. Maybe could you talk about the one? Just
I
so
sure
that
can. I can read right from the report, Mayor Wood.
Yes, please.
Ruby Creek Forest Service Road on the afternoon of March 30th. The Agassiz Fire Department responded to a report of a column of black smoke on the Ruby Creek Fire Service Road. On arrival in the area, Agassiz crews were met by BC Wildlife crews who were already on scene and setting up containment for a large wildfire. The fire initiated at roughly the 5-kilometer marker outside of the District of Kent boundaries on the Forest Service Road and burnt northeast at the hydro transmission right of way. Agassiz Fire Crews supplied water for forestry crews on scene by filling portable bladders from a nearby pond. At approximately 17:30 hours, Agassiz crews returned to quarters. BC Wildfire Crews, along with 2 bucket ship helicopters, remained on scene working the fire. The fire was contained the following day, having grown quickly on the first day to an approximate 14 hectares. The fire is no longer mapped on the BC Wild Interface dashboard and is considered out.
I just wanted to add to that. I thought it was, the part I picked up on that was that the BC wildfire already had boots on the ground by the same time that the Agassiz Fire Department could get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that helps build or should build confidence in the community that we are not alone and that the provincial wildfire, they do take it seriously. And again, I think that really shows it. And again, just a last comment on it, and I thank the Agassiz, obviously, Fire Department for doing their work and supporting them and getting this fire under control, because my understanding is it was quite a fire to begin with, and they luckily got control of it quite quickly. Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor.
Also at the Emergency Planning Committee, there was a delegation from Tourism Harrison River Valley with a request to join the committee, and I do see that an agenda item is on tonight with a staff report will be presented tonight, so we can look at some further discussion and recommendation. April 22nd, I also joined the first leg of Mayor Pranger's Walk as a fundraiser for the Lettsmont Regional Aquatic Center. I wanted to give a shout out to Councillor Facio, Councillor Buckley's wife Karen, resident Judith Barron, and myself walked with Mayor Pranger from the Kent Municipal Hall to the Popcom roundabout. But also I wanted to give a special shout out to another resident, Teresa Garneau, who not only joined us, but completed the entire 26-kilometer walk. I believe Mayor Pranger raised over $30,000, and our resident Teresa organized her own fundraising. The last I heard, she raised over $2,000. I think Teresa is here, and perhaps she can provide me with a little bit of an update, Teresa, just on the amount.
Thank you. I'm pleased to announce that as of 6 o'clock tonight, I brought in a gross total of $2,548.30. With a payout of $373 to the 50/50 winner, a local resident and a local family from Harrison Hot Springs. Congratulations. That leaves a net cash and checks on hand of $2,175.30 after 18 days of fundraising. And I also have a $100 check that's waiting to be picked up from another resident, and some additional possible corporate sponsors that they're working behind the scenes to try to push me over the $5,000 goal that I had set. So thank you very much, Mayor Wood, for your support, councillors, and Mayor Pranger, and the residents of Harrison Hot Springs and the other supporters. And
I equally thank you.
Thank you.
It would not have happened without you. Thank you.
thank you. It was an honor to represent Harrison. Thank you.
Also, April 25th, I attended a Community Futures North Fraser board meeting as our council liaison. And I also just wanted to say today, I have the pleasure of attending our elementary school performance down at the plaza, which was directed by our own Todd Rashad. The school sang Todd's composition, Follow Your Heart, for their Music Monday. Thanks to the students for their hard work and a wonderful performance. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. On April the 18th, I attended the Agassiz Harrison Chamber of Commerce meeting via Zoom. They are holding fairly steady at 85 members. They didn't have a lot to report at this time. And I also attended Earth Day at the hotel. And I was speaking with the principal and some of the kids. The mood was very festive. The kids were very happy. It was a great organized day for sure from the school. One thing I did note was when I was talking with the principal that she told me that there was very little garbage picked up, which is very encouraging. And I know our staff have in the past and continue doing just a wonderful job for us. And I would like to ask you, Mr. Cook, if you could please send along council's thank you for the job they've done. I know my wife and I have walked around the village, which we do just about every day. And on the Monday morning after a weekend, things are back in their pristine condition. So thank you very much for that. We all give you a big kudo for that one. And also I attended the Healthy Communities meeting on April 20th. They wanted to let me know that the seniors lunches are going on again in Agassiz. They're being held at the Legion. And if you contact the Agassiz Community Services, they can give you more information on times and when it is. They did say it's being held once a month on the first Tuesdays. More information will also be forthcoming in the local paper, and there is no charge for the lunch. And they hope to somehow expand that into Harrison here as well. So they're doing a great job over there. And Grace Admiral is the one heading that up, and kudos to her as well. She does a wonderful job there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I also attended the Earth Day. I was very happy to see it was back in Harrison. My compliments to Councillor Facio to working on that to get back. The kids were excited, and I think I was more excited than the kids. I also attended the Fraser Valley Regional Library Board meeting on April the 26th. I'm pleased to say that we also heard their audit report. The finances of our library system are in really good shape, and we look forward to expanding all the outtakes in 2023 and on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
The next order of excuse me, the next order of business is reports from mayor.
So I'm not going to repeat some of the same items. Some of you may have noticed the flags that were were lowered to half-mast, and that was in recognition of WCB, people that were severely injured and or that died on the job. So there was a small ceremony at the village office on that. The other one I wanted to talk about was I had a tour. It was an invitation to the holiday park here. And it was an interesting tour through there. So it's a 40-acre site, and you want to look at a community. It's just fantastic how well it's run inside. You look at the way that they've managed their trees, it feels like what Harrison, I think, used to be many years ago. Again, just very impressed with how clean it was. They have just installed some updated fire equipment. So that should help us with some ease on that. There's still obviously the village fire hydrants outside the site, but now they've got their own hydrants actually inside the site. So it's a well run, and I was very impressed with the holiday park. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports from staff. And the first report is from the operations manager regarding servicing agreement deposit refunds to developer.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. The point of this, excuse me, the report is to clarify something was brought up at the last council meeting of April 17th, 2023. A comment regarding a payment made to a developer in the order of $427,000 to the village was made. The funds referred to at the previous meeting are the partial return of a developer's deposit, not a payment, and are a normal course of business. Here's some additional context that may be helpful. When a developer proposes to complete civil work such as roads, sewer main, water mains, etc., they are required to establish a works and services agreement with the village. In accordance with our subdivision and servicing bylaw 1179/2022, all works and services constructed at the expense of the owner of the land being subdivided or developed must be constructed in accordance with the provisions of this bylaw before the approving officer approves the subdivision. The works and services security must be in the amount of 125% of the cost of as estimated in writing by the owner's engineer and verified by the village for the works and services. The village may release or draw upon the security in whole or in part on or at any time prior to completion of the works and services for works described in the works and services agreement. The purpose of retaining the value of construction is to protect the village and or future owners of the infrastructure. As the civil works are completed, the developer can request a release of the funds they have on deposit with the village. So funds referred to was actually a return of a deposit, not a payment. Recommendation in front of council this evening is that mayor and council receive the servicing agreement deposit funds to developer report.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for receipt? Councillor Buckley and Councillor Vidal. For seconder discussion. Call the question, all in favor? For receipt, motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the report of the operations manager, deputy CAO, regarding the proposed Woods Park playground.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Before I speak to this report, I just want to advise council that as of this afternoon, it was learned that there was a portion of the area, the subdivision or the area that is around Woods Park, that approximately 25 properties were not sent a notification looking for their feedback. So I'll allow council to decide whether they want to hear the report and the comments that were made, or if you would like to refer it back to staff for us to be able to issue those notices to the properties that were missed, and I can bring it back to a later council meeting.
Thank you. To move, do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion on that? Go ahead, Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I think reading the ones that I did, there was only 12 responses that we have here. So I definitely would appreciate it if we could go back and get all the houses, and that way we can get an accurate count. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I concur with Councillor Buckley. If and when we do proceed with this project, I think it's important that public engagement is initiated. So therefore, perhaps a motion will be in order after a discussion to table this and to bring it back after the other public engagement is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. We have to keep in mind here, we're looking at a playground for little children. Not a big edifice. I mean, this is not rocket science. I see they have some people have chosen option number 2. So I don't want this to get pushed back and then back again like a ping pong ball. Because it's gonna take a long time, if we do choose something, it's gonna take a while to get it. And we only have a short summer. I don't understand. I mean, we have to we're elected to make decisions, not put things off till the next day. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Facio?
Yeah, first of all, Mayor Wood, what is the motion we have at the moment?
It's just to let staff continue with the report, or it goes back out for further comment.
Okay, the only thing I would like to, that staff, okay, I'll make another motion if you want. I'll wait for you to vote on that.
Okay. Ready to call the question then? So this is just to continue on with the presentation of the report to council. So I'll call the question. All in favor?
If I may,
I'll let you on this one. Go ahead, Councilor.
yeah, thank
Barclay.
you. If I may, I guess the report is not going to hurt anything to hear the report, I
Correct.
guess. And so, yes, I'm in favor of that one. I just wanted to make sure we weren't not sending it back. I just think it's really important that we notify the other residents as well, so they have a say in this, but thank you.
Thank you. So I called the question. That was all in favor. So that was Counselor and opposed. Counselor, motion passes then with Counselor Jackson opposed. So that's the motion is for Operations Manager just to proceed with with reading out your report, please.
Okay, thank you very much. The purpose of this report is to identify the location and cost for a proposed new playground in Woods Park. Up for discussion is at the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting, Mayor and council received a letter from a resident asking council to consider having a small play park for children installed in Woods Park, which is at 516 Driftwood Avenue. At the aforementioned meeting, council passed the following motions: that staff come back to council with costs to construct a small play area in Woods Park with equipment and ground cover to be brought back to council or for council's consideration on May 1st, 2023 regular council meeting, and that no trees be cut down for the construction of the play area, and that staff seek input from the public, from residents on Driftwood Avenue and Cottonwood Avenue for putting a small play area in Woods Park. Village staff compiled cost estimates for a complete installation that includes ground cover and no tree removal for a new playground with a few options for council's consideration. Something council needs to keep in mind is there is no funds allocated for the 2023 budget for this year, so this would either most likely be for consideration for next year. The public notice request, residents' feedback was sent to all properties, which is we missed 25 properties at Cottonwood Avenue and Driftwood Avenue addresses. To meet the deadline for the May 1st, 2023 regular council meeting, responses were accepted until 4:30, April 24th. As a matter of fact, we had a few come in later that we included. So on page 2 of the report, there's a playground location, and the ideal location essentially is in the center east of the park. There's a large enough area to accommodate either one of these options without tree removal. Consideration does have to be taken. Obviously, the property that's on the east side of the park may or may not be impacted. The first option is quite an advanced, or I guess a smaller option. However, it does come in at the value of $65,000. Option 2 is a little bit larger, and it looks more like a jungle gym type of play area. It comes in at a cost of $75,700. And then option 3 is just a simple 4 swings, 2 toddler and 2 normal swings for a cost of just under $20,000. The following questions were put in the public notice. Would you like a playground at this park? What kind of equipment would you like? And please present your ideas. So of the responses received, I just pulled out the highlights, either positive or negative. We support the idea of adding playground equipment. That's from 505 Cottonwood Avenue. We would love to see a playground in Woods Park, Cottonwood Place. We definitely would be in favor of adding playground at Woods Park, Cottonwood Place. We have enjoyed the woods in Woods Park, Woods Park, and would not like a playground there, Cottonwood Avenue. My family and I heard about the request to install a playground at Woods Park, and personally, I would not like one there from Cottonwood Avenue. Our family of 5 would love to see a sport court in Woods Park from Driftwood Avenue. My husband and I have no objection for a small playground to be built in the playground, providing that it blends in with the natural look of the park. No trees would have to come down and it would not be intrusive. That's resident from Cottonwood Avenue. Support the idea, but hope it's not too large, hopefully small and appropriately sized for the space. From a property owner at Cottonwood Place. Poor idea, keep activity at the beach, not enough police to worry about this, and it attracts odd people after hours. And that's a resident from Cottonwood Place. We do not support a playground in Woods Park at this time, and they didn't leave an address. I believe that the park is almost perfect the way it is, and that's from a resident at Driftwood Avenue. The recommendation is that the Woods Park playground report be received for information.
Thank you. Do I have a move? Excuse me, do I have a mover for receipt? Moved by Counselor Vidal, seconded by Counselor Buckley. Discussion? Excuse me.
Actually, do we, can I make an, oh,
Just- It's just for
Sorry.
receipt. It's just, we're just on receipt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Schultz, our manager of finances. Is there any room somewhere with the grants that we've received lately that we could go ahead with one of these options without going, taking our money from our reserve or something that would cover the cost of this park for this year so we could get going when the other ones come back, if that's the way we choose to go?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Buckley. There are several options we can look at. I would maybe recommend sending it back to staff. We could look at some options for funding. If you'd prefer to do it in the current year, we can come back with options for sure.
Okay, would we need a motion for that to do that as well then after this?
Just after.
And then-
receipt.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just for receipt right now. Any further discussion on receipt? Counselor Vidal.
We're just talking on receipt of the motion, no discussion as of yet. Sorry, I'll wait for a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's any further discussion. We call the question for receipt. All in favor? Passes unanimously. And Counselor Buckley, you had a motion.
I would like to put a motion on the floor that we ask for monies to be allocated if in fact we do go ahead with this, so it would be done this year. And however you want to word that would be fine for me. I just think that it would be prudent if we're going to go ahead and do it the sooner we can. And if they were to start looking into it now versus waiting for the response to come back from the other 25 residents, we would be ready at that time. So we could put it out to bid and get her done for this year. So
Yeah, so help me on your motion there, Counselor. So your motion.
my motion would be that we allocate the time for Mr. Schultz to look into the funding for the playground. And at that time, if we decide to go ahead, the funds would be there for this year.
So you're asking for a referral to staff refunding.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Counselor Vidal. Discussion?
Mayor,
Just Counselor Vidal, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood, and thank you for the report. I want to say that I'm not completely happy with all of the options. I had and received a letter from a resident who was involved initially and surveyed the residents as to what they wanted. what they wanted to see in Woods Park. And that was done in 2008. The results of that survey were that the residents wanted to keep the park as natural as possible. And with that, the village did remove debris from the park, put in some picnic tables and garbage receptacles. The park's regularly used not only for residents, for neighbor get-togethers, but also for families to enjoy the natural aspect of the park. And many of the residents who initially provided input in that survey still live on the two streets. So my concern with the options that have been presented is they appear to me to be more of an option that you would see, say, down in our beach area or in a more open area. And I do know that there are other options available for more natural looking structures. And I believe you can get artificial wood, and whether it's, steps that look like stumps or whatever, just so it would blend in a little bit more with the park. So with that, I would also request that staff also look at that option. And once costing is brought back to us, if staff could also include that as an option, more natural looking, tunnels that maybe look like hollowed out trees or something like that. So that would be my request, Mayor Wood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I would concur with both councillors, but I would like to, if this is fine with Councillor Buckley, that our staff and CFO look into the funding for this. I know we do have a Parks Reserve as well. In regards to, from my point of view, either option 1 or 3, or what Councillor Vidal says, a more natural type of thing. I think it's important that over the last few months, we've had requests from people regarding there should be more stuff for the children to do. And I think we have a perfect area here where we can put, I don't expect this to be a massive, great, big one like there is in Spring Park, but I would like to see those options brought forward with a costing again by June the 5th, and a decision to be made by council then when they have had all the surveys back, and also the other option other than what we have in front of here that's been put forward by Councillor Vidal. But I mean, if it had happened tomorrow, we'll say let's start off with a swing set. But this is all the discussion. So that's my proposal to staff, is also to look at the come back on the 5th of June, because that just about gives our CFO enough time to look at the funding formula and come back with a report then, and another option besides the 3 that we have in front of us. Thank you.
So to clarify, Councillor Facio, you're asking Councillor Buckley for a friendly amendment? So it was and that was moved by yourself, I believe, Councillor Buckley and Councillor Vidal. So Councillor Vidal, you're good with that amendment? So the amendment would read then, it's refer to staff, read the funding and report back by June the 5th. Is that correct? Councillor Facio. Thank you. Councillor Buckley.
And while we're at it too, I guess, do we need to make that also that they check into other options?
I think they,
Yeah, if we could, if that needs to be added, or,
I don't-
okay, might as well put that on the list too then.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think,
that way we can have the options in front of us and know the monies are there, and then we can proceed or not proceed, but at least we'll be ready.
I think we haven't picked an option here, so I would think that they would do it for the options, and I would think that they would look at something that Counselor Vidal's looking at too.
Okay, I'm happy with that one.
I think that would be good. Counselor Jackson, did you have any further discussion on that one?
We're just kicking the can down the road.
Yep.
Have the counselors talk to people that have little children, what they want? We're looking at doing something for kids. We're not planning on buying the Titanic here.
Counselor
I-
Jackson, can you just pull your mic a little closer, please? The public can't hear you.
Oh, very sorry. No, I just want to remind that we're just kicking the can down the road here. We're looking at doing something for little children in our neighborhood. The people to talk to are the mothers who have the children who want them to play in these playgrounds. The more they're outside, the healthier they're going to be. I mean, this is not rocket science. We can keep and ask it. There's always money. I've been on council and business long enough to know there's always money. You can always find it for some things like this. If we had to upgrade Memorial Hall, like we've been asked tonight, we overspent $900,000 on the upgrade of this hall and made it worse because of the acoustics. So it's relevant to get things done, and I just find that, we're here to make decisions. But whatever council wants, I guess it'll be. I'm just frustrated about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on that? So again, so the motion on the table is to refer back to staff on the three options plus the additional option of a natural setting regarding the funding for the June 5th regular meeting of council. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Motion passes with Counselor Jackson and myself opposed. Next order of business, please.
Thank you. The next order of business is a report of the finance manager regarding the 2022 financial audit statements.
Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm here this evening for the approval of the 2022 annual audited financial statements. 2022 saw both challenges and opportunities. There was some COVID-19 restrictions were slowly lifted, which increased the usage for our municipal facilities. Also, summer visitation was strong. That saw many visitors coming to enjoy the village, which in turn supports local businesses and hotels. Pay parking was also well used, which contributes to the beautification and maintenance of the beachfront area, as well as other parks and the village amenities. For general expenses, as expected, the village faced high inflationary pressures on items such as utilities, fuel, insurance, chemicals and supplies for treatment plants, and otherwise increased costs of general goods and services. These costs were mitigated as much as possible, and most line items still coming in at or below budget. On the capital projects side, generally speaking, we saw less expenditures on capital projects versus budget this year. I'm sorry, in 2022, mostly due to the increased challenges around the supply chain, as well as timing of grant applications. Basically, many planned projects are grant funded. When we apply for grants, the governmental bodies require us to include the requested capital project amounts in our annual budget. However, if grants are not approved or delayed, we won't see the grant revenues come in, but we also won't have the offsetting expenses. So basically, it's a net zero. Also, many capital projects were carried forward into 2023, mostly again due to supply chain issues, causing shortages on materials, as well as overall timing with labor availability. These issues are softening, and much work should be completed in 2023. In summary, the village remains in a very sound financial position. At the end of 2022, there were balances of approximately 5.7 million in reserves, 6 million in accumulated surplus, and 5.2 million in development cost charges collected from developers for infrastructure construction and improvements. Section 167 of the Community Charter requires that municipalities submit audited financial statements to the Inspector of Municipalities by May 15th of each year. Therefore, it's a recommendation that the independent auditor's report be received and that the 2022 financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs be approved. And further, that the independent auditor's report be attached to the approved financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Discussion. Discussion, ready to call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is report of the planning consultant regarding the official community plan bylaw 1184, 2022.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the rescinding of second and third readings of the official community plan bylaw 1184, 2022, the village needs to give the bylaw a second reading and provide staff with the authority to set up a public hearing. However, prior to that, this would be a good time to solicit additional community input. And then just in front of us, just as a reminder, that the past engagement approach consisted of using the village's website, in-person pop-up events, online surveys, the World Cafe, and a public hearing that was held on September 23, 2022. And we had approximately 316 individuals that attended or participated through the process. The past consultation model was based on a process where we utilized engaging, where there's dialogue going back and forth. And the overall comments on the community plan received to date included that there was considerable support for the current vision and goals of the current OCP. There was also support for the inclusion of the 2 new development permit areas into the OCP. And this is the interface wildfire development permit and the greenhouse gas emissions development permit. Also, under the Local Government Act, the effect of the official community plan indicates that under section 4.78.1 of the Act does not commit Harrison Hot Springs to proceed with any project that they wish to entail. When we're looking to deal with soliciting or seeking public input and setting up a process, there is no right way or a wrong approach to seeking community input, as each community has its unique character. As the current updated OCP has been in the public realm for a number of months, the critical issues that keeps coming up suggest that clarity on what an OCP does suggests that individual public input is required, and clarity is needed around what does a land use designation do when compared to a rezoning regulation. So we need a system to accomplish 2 things: to answer questions and to solicit input. As with the current OCP, the updated OCP designation designates potential areas for residential or commercial areas within the village's boundary. There's been some confusion that the low density residential designation in the OCP map means that we're going to have duplexes, coach homes spread out throughout the entire village area. And that's not true, because only these items are only allowed in the R2 zone as per the currently adopted zoning bylaw. As a public hearing is set up to receive comments only, staff wish to set up a system whereby there can be dialogue between the public and the planning department. This would help clear up any confusion over a land use designation versus a land use zoning regulation. Prior to suggesting a process or tool, we need to answer 3 key questions at this time. And who is the target audience? Who do we want to engage, and what are our limitations? The target audience is all members of the community, but specifically someone who needs clarification on an issue. The use of an open house or an information meeting is a suggested approach because of this. We can answer questions face to face, and community input is still encouraged, and they can be provided throughout the process. Frequently asked questions with answers can form part of the consultation process. Excuse me. So the suggested open house approach, our guiding philosophy will be to maximize opportunities for the village's residents to review information and provide ideas and input. In addition, an open house will provide flexibility for the community to drop in as their schedule allows them to review the information provided and to discuss the project with a planner. The following dates and times are suggested, and please note that there's no day of the week or time period that is better than the other. The intent is to create a system that provides as much flexibility as possible so that the residents can attend at their own pace and schedule. What we're recommending or suggesting is Monday, May the 29th from 9 to noon, Tuesday, May the 30th from 1 to 5, Wednesday, May the 31st from 5 to 9 p.m. We need to ensure that the event is well staffed. Generally, the biggest complaint about open houses is there's not enough staff to answer any questions. There will be 3 planners in attendance to answer any questions on any OCP issue that any resident has concerns about. The collection of the information there'll be flip charts, comment sheets, and post-it notes scattered throughout the displays to encourage the residents to provide their comments and ideas. And we will advertise in the local newspaper on May 12th, 19th, and 26th, and these ads will contain the dates, time, and location of the open houses. A notice will be placed up on the village's website and on the electronic messaging board. After the open house, the report will be prepared for council to review and determine what the next steps. With that, your worship, the staff recommendation is that staff be authorized to set up the open house.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion. Councillor Facio.
Sorry. That's a question to Mr. Cossie. A notice, report we prepared for council review and determine the next steps. Now, will this be going to the APC as well? For their consideration as they were involved in this in the first instance?
Go ahead, to our planner.
Yes, that's one of the considerations, because what could happen is if there's any changes, we have to consider all of those changes, and then council can decide who they want to refer the bylaw to and additional input from whatever agency that they see fit.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. With you to the planner, just want to confirm if we agree to those dates, that the location will be here at the hall?
Well, we're considering either the hall or in the current council chambers. Because the idea is that there'll be displays set up so that individuals can walk through and ask questions and provide their comments. There'll be no presentations, and so it'll be just an easy walkthrough for individuals for those time periods.
Thank you. Well, okay, I will leave it up to yourself and our staff then to determine the best location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? It's unfortunate that we didn't do the next item here first, as I see it here. My mistake, I apologize. But I would actually move the postpone this decision until the province decides on Bill 43 regulations. I think until such time as that's done, it makes no sense to move forward with any work on our OCP. No sense getting the public involved. I think the presentation that you've done here tonight is bang on. I love everything I've seen, but until we get some feelings from the province as far as what they're going to do with these regulations, again, of Bill 43, I just think that we're spending bad money, and they're going to come in and take over and change the zoning requirements. It's going to change a lot of the questions that come from the public. So again, so my motion is to postpone it until the province decides on Bill 43 regulations. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. The way I see it, communities like Harrison, because we're so small, I think the provincial government is going to go after. Because we are such a small village, I
Here.
believe the
Thank you.
the intent of this is to go after the big boys. Vancouver, the Surreys, the Delta, the Kelownas. We are already contributing quite a bit, some of the development we have had here in Harrison through affordable housing. The challenge that they're looking at is how do you ever make housing affordable in the Lower Mainland without the land? I understand where you're coming from, but I think what we could do here is start the process. And when we find, and I agree with you, if we find out that we're going to be impacted, then we can put it on hold. But maybe getting our people's comments right now, because they'll be following it, may give us some impetus to look at what the final plan for the OCP is going to be. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that we should go ahead, get the input right now, and then if we have to, put it on hold until we hear from the provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Vidal?
Thank you, Mayor, but I take an opposite view. Because there is still uncertainty as to when Bill 43 will be enacted. It's talking about mid-2023, but that's not a sure thing. I think it's important that we move ahead with finalizing the OCP. And the reason for that is it should Bill 43 become an act, at least it shows the intent and the wish of the residents of Harrison. How Harrison will be impacted by Bill 43, I don't think anyone really knows. It is concerning. I am sure with the Lower Mainland Local Government Association conference here this week, that there certainly will be some active discussion around it. And I look forward to listening to that and listening to that discussion. My view only, Mayor Wood, thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is Bill 43 is actually an act, so it is actually in place. It's not being considered. It has passed the requirements. It's the regulations or more the specifics of what they're going to do with it. Is it going to bypass a small municipality like ours? I sure hope so. And I think we have to be strong on that issue. Again, I think that's the conversation of the next item on our list here. Again, it's unfortunate that we're talking about this first. But if I recall correctly, there was a cost estimate for us to proceed with the OCP because we went back to first reading. Can either the Chief Administrative Officer or the Chief Financial Officer, what is the cost implications to us if we were to proceed with the continuing on with this OCP and in case it's affected by Bill 43? Do we have it?
I don't, but maybe Scott does.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have that amount at this time. There is a small amount of budget left for the OCP. So anything in addition to that would have to come back to council for reapproval.
So I just recall hearing some figure in the neighborhood of over $30,000 to $40,000 as we go through the next steps to get to final adoption on this. Does that sound like a reasonable number?
Haven't heard that number. I basically, I don't have the exact number of the budget left, but that would be the number that we would be bound to.
Thank you. And I apologize for putting you on the spot on that one there. So I think it's important, Counselor Vidal, I hear what you're saying, but there's a significant amount of staff time and money to be put into this. And I would really hope that we can slow things down here again. And so further discussion on that. Yes, Counselor Buckley.
Through you, Mayor Wood, I think if I could hear what Mr. Cossey has to say about this subject too, it might help. Through you to Mr. Cossey, I would like to ask, what is your opinion on this? And would it behoove us not to hold off a little bit and then come back when in fact we do know something because of the unknown? And that's where I'm coming from. I understand it would be nice to get this over and done with, but if it was mid-23, as the article says, we could then proceed from that point, and then we would have all the cards on the table. But I would like your input on that. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this is now what we're into discussing Bill 43. One of the things that's associated with Bill 43 is that the province, if they indicated, I'm sorry, I should start right from the beginning because I'm jumping into the middle.
Just before, I'm just wondering whether can we move to the next item on the list and come back for this one here? To our Chief Administrative Officer.
If the council feels that the discussion will help make that decision, then I believe you can move on. If it's, you're receiving information that will help you decide how you're going to vote on that motion.
Okay, I believe this council wanted to discuss Bill 43 first. No, did you get it? Just hands up, guys. Hands if you want to move to the counselor. Yeah, okay. So let's do that then. I'm going to move to the next item then, and then you can talk about Bill 43, I think, in entirety. Over to our planner, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bill 43, the report starts on page 111 of the agenda package. And it issues as what we've done is just provided a summary review of the Housing Supply Act and the identification of some potential issues at the municipal level. On November 24, 2022, Bill 43, the Housing Supply Act received royal assent and is expected to be brought in by regulation in mid-2023. And my apologies that I made reference to here that the Housing Supply Act only has 6 parts. In reality, it has 8. I guess I can't count. The main issue is that the province has signaled to all municipalities in British Columbia that it intends to keep a close eye on both housing development and the approval of housing at the local level. The main outcome of this legislation is that it will enable the province to set housing development targets for specific municipalities. Earlier media reports have indicated that the province already has a potential list of 8 to 10 high-need, unnamed municipalities in mind. While the legislation offers consultation and persuasion as the focus during the initial stages, if that does not work out, then the province may utilize compulsion. When 2 different views on what the public interest is, either the local government's views or the provincial government's review, this legislation will ensure that the province's viewpoints will prevail. One of the things that they will find out as we get into this is that the province can create zoning bylaws, issue permits as one of the tools that they can do if you don't follow their requirements. Nothing to do with the OCP at this particular point in time. It's just the zoning bylaw and with permits. However, under the current legislation, section 584, the province already has the ability to say, we don't like that OCP, we don't like that zoning bylaw, but this legislation under the Bill 43 will allow the province to go out and create a zoning bylaw and a development permit and issue it on behalf of the municipality if it ever gets to that level. In addition to the setting of a local housing development target, the province may also take certain actions if its target is not met. These actions can include directives to require a municipality to enact or amend, issue, or reject permits. If the directives are not followed, the act allows for the province to directly enact or amend the bylaws or to issue or reject permits. And as I mentioned earlier, this was outlined under section 584 of the Local Government Act, but Bill 43 takes it one step further and allows the province to create a zoning bylaw to get the housing development project through. So the first step of the legislation is outlined in section 2 of the Housing Supply Act. Is the minister responsible needs to set a housing target order. This outlines the following: the specific municipal housing target, a series of performance indicators, and a deadline by which a municipality's progress towards the target will be assessed. In making the target, the municipality, the minister must consider a number of factors as outlined in section 3 of the Housing Supply Act. And this includes consulting with the municipality and providing the municipalities the opportunity to provide comments to the minister before the order is issued. After the municipality has received a housing target order, then you generally have a 2-year time period to implement that requirements. And if not, then you have to go back and talk to the minister, especially if they deem it to be insufficient progress has been made towards the housing target. The minister is then able to appoint an advisor or issue directives. The minister must consult with the municipality first and provide the municipality with the opportunity to provide comments to the minister. The requirements to appoint an advisor and the task of the advisor are outlined in section 8 of the Act. The advisor has access to various municipal records and files, and the only restriction being is the advisor cannot review any content related to a closed meeting. Now, at the same time that this has been going on, there's been a development approvals process review that has been conducted, and this started back in February of 2008, February of 2018. It started with the release of the Homes for BC government's 30-point plan for housing affordability in British Columbia. In 2019, the final report on the province-wide consultation was released. And since then, the province has been working on setting up a new development approvals process for local governments. While the overall focus of the review has not been resolved yet, the current review seems to be about aligning the current municipal housing needs reports in with the regional growth strategy, and if applicable, the OCP zoning bylaws and any other land-related bylaws and any land-related housing policies at the municipal level. As we're all aware, the Local Government Act provides local governments with a range of planning documents. This includes the regional growth strategies, official community plans, and zoning bylaws. Under the current legislation, local governments are also have a host of specific land use planning tools at their disposal, such as development cost charges, development permits, temporary use permits, and development variance permits. There is no indication yet if there will be any changes to either the planning documents or the various tools. However, there's been some suggestions on setting up an amenity development cost charge concept, which will replace the use of the community amenity contribution tool. The biggest concern is that, from a professional perspective, is that the Housing Supply Act grants the province the ability to change the course of land use planning within municipalities. The province will be empowered to issue permits and create and pass zoning bylaws without addressing any municipal concerns. But I understand that will be at the last step if you're not approving the housing required, if you're not implementing your housing needs report, or you're not approving for various types of houses that the municipality may or may not need. The way the Housing Supply Act is worded, a housing target order may only be overturned when it can prove to be arbitrary, issued for an improper purpose, based upon irrelevant factors, or fail to follow the statutory requirements of the Act. At this point, the overall implications of the Housing Supply Act remain unclear, as details of the new regime remain unknown at this time. Examples of this would be how the province will be addressing any impacts for a change on the local infrastructure. This is dealing with their tool that they can bring in at the new zoning bylaw. Any impacts of or change on the local infrastructure? Are there any exemptions to pre-zoned areas? The cutting of trees, potential traffic flow volumes, impacts upon local facilities and buildings such as schools or the provision of emergency services. But the big focus is that there's no discussion on changing the official community plan at this particular point in time. What the focus is and the legislation speaks to is zoning bylaws and the various types of permits that municipal governments issue. And with that, your worship, we're suggesting that the review of the Housing Supply Act report dated May 1, 2023 be received for information.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Move.
Back.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, or Mayor Wood, the information provided by the planner was to help make a decision for the last motion before we receive this motion.
So you want to go back and finish the other motion then?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can we have discussion on this one? So then if we could move receipt, then we could go into discussion on it. Okay, so we can't because we have the other motion.
Yes, sorry, we said that he could present his report in order to help council make an opinion on the motion about the OCP, going forward with the OCP. So if we could use this information he's provided to you right now for that motion, and then come back and then receive that motion for
Thank you.
information after the fact.
Thank you. Okay, so that staff be authorized to set up an open house. So we're back at that motion. That's correct. Item D. Thank you. So we were in discussion. Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I think it's important to move ahead with the discussion from the public regarding the OCP. In the regional growth strategy, as I read out before over the last 2 or 3 weeks, that is still moving ahead even with the Bill 43 electoral areas. There's 1 or 2 now that already are going through their official community plans. So I think it's like Mr. Cossie said, a lot of this is going to come down to the zoning in the area. So I think it's important to get the official community plan moving forward, and we can official community plans can also be amended if need be. There's a lot of discussion that the government has to explain to the communities here. We're certainly not one of the 8 or 10, I'm sure. But local infrastructure and traffic flows, and of course, local school is virtually a capacity as it is. So there's a lot for them to consider if they were going to hit us. So I think, like Councillor Jackson said, they're probably going for the big guys first in this respect and moving down the line. But I'm still in favor of moving forward with the open house and a good plan that Mr. Cossie has put forward to have 3 types of times down for the meetings to give the public an opportunity during the course of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. So just for clarity, so the motion on the table is not that staff authorized to set up an open house. The motion was to postpone until the province decides on Bill 43. So further discussion on the postponement.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. From what I hear, when it's explained to me as well, the only thing would be in the zoning. So if we were to proceed with the rest of the OCP at that time, then hopefully we would know when the zoning comes about. And at that time, there may be amendments, but we don't know either. And it's not something that I don't know, I just feel somehow with them to come out and do something like that is just a little undemocratic. I don't know. Because I think you're going to end up with a lot of places, as Councillor Fascio just said, with high density, lack of roads, lack of schools, lack of anything else. And I think the government is trying to play catch up here. And I really don't like the way they're going about it. There's other ways of doing this, but even when you allow that, I still don't know where somebody's going to buy a cheap house for $500,000, where they're going to get that $500,000. And I can't see, I think what needs to be done is have some sort of a buy-in from the province where they have the land and they then up set up in Edmonton, Alberta. They have a project going along where the old airport used to be in downtown Edmonton, where they're selling cheaper houses. And that seems to be working just fine. But what they're gonna do with this just scares me just a little bit. But I think as far as the OCP goes, for the rest of it, I don't think it's gonna hurt anything to go ahead with the open houses. But I think we'll have to deal with the zoning when it gets to us. We're not sure when that's gonna be. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to comment on that. I mean, zoning in my mind is land use. The OCP is land use, so it's all about land use. So to spend tens of thousands of dollars and go through this process, to have the province come in and make changes, would be very unfortunate. I hear Councillor Facio and I hear Councillor Buckley. Actually, you don't want to believe it'll happen. I believe from my years of municipal experience is that the government are very likely to do it. Don't kid yourself. The government need money. The only way that they can bring down their deficits, the government, the city of Vancouver, I've said it before, they have enormous amount of infrastructure upgrades that need to be done, and their only way to do it is to increase density. And their density increases are 6 to 8 buildings per lot, not 3 or 4 that this even is discussing. We talk about affordable houses. I get frustrated when I hear that word affordable, because there's no such thing as anything's close to affordable. Especially if it's a first-time home buyer. My heart goes out to you. And even if you were to put 2 lots or 2 buildings on a lot, the construction costs of a building or the construction cost of doing the building, the cost of real estate in the village here is relatively cheap compared to a lot of the other areas. Cheap is still not, I don't call $500,000 for a lot cheap. So I think we've missed the boat on what's called affordable living, rent. I mean, I just feel for the people. I just don't understand where we've gone to and how the government let us get to as far as we got. So I think that they could come in here and hit us really hard on this Bill 43, and I don't think that we should take it lightly. In fact, I would like to see that we actually send a letter to the province with our. I'll talk about that in the next motion here. But again, the motion right now is just to postpone it. I would think that the postponement until we know what these regulations are financially would be in our best interest. Anyhow, are we ready to call the question? So this now again is the motion to postpone the bill until the province decides on Bill 43 regulations. Call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Motion fails with Councillor Bidell, Councillor Facio, and Councillor Jackson opposed. Back to the main motion, and that was the main motion on that was that staff be authorized to set up an open house. Any further discussion on that? Ready to call the question? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes with Councillor Buckley and Mayor Wood opposed. Next order of business, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just writing that down. The next order of business is the report of the planning consultant. His recommendation is that the review of the Housing Supply Act report dated May 1st, 2023 be received for information.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? See no discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously for receipt. And I would like to move that we send a letter to the province. I just think that this village is so uniquely different from everything in their thoughts on this Bill 43. I have no idea how to draft this letter, but I believe it should be a strong letter to the province that we are opposed to this high density in our R1 community zones. Do I have a
Second that,
seconder on that?
Mayor Wood.
Seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Councillor opposed? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, opposed? In favor, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the report of the operations manager, acting DCAO, regarding the emergency sewer repair on McCombs Bridge South.
Thank you. This report is to bring the public or council and the public up to speed on where we are with the emergency sewer repair for McCombs Bridge South. On Good Friday, we had a sewer separation on the North Bridge, which triggered an inspection of the utilities on the south, or McCombs Bridge South. Upon inspection, staff discovered a small leak in a steel sewer line, which was encased in a concrete bridge abutment in a location that is impossible to repair without a major disruption to the bridge. A local contractor, Timbo Contracting, was engaged to provide an estimate for the emergency repairs. An option that will see the existing sanitary force main rerouted and mounted to the outside of the bridge was selected. Utility staff notified the appropriate authorities and determined next steps and was advised by the federal environmental enforcement officer to contain the leak immediately. The leak could not be contained under the bridge, so village staff contacted the operator of Harrison Holiday Park, requesting that they temporarily shut down their lift station. A pumper truck was engaged to regularly empty the on-site wet well until the repairs were complete. The ownership of the existing force main was identified through a search of the property file, that it was actually reverted to the village in 1977. The details around the emergency sewer repair. Timber Contractor provided an estimate for the emergency sewer works, which will be a permanent repair at a value of $88,000 plus applicable taxes. If Timbo received authorization operator April 21st, which they did, so they could order necessary materials and plan for a start date of April 25th, 2023, and an end date of April 28th, 2023. Additional finishing works will be required this week or when the supplies come in. After discussion with the interim CAO, staff moved forward with authorizing Timber Contracting to complete the emergency sewer repairs at a value not to exceed $100,000 with an anticipated commencement date of April 25th, 2023. The recommendation that the mayor and council authorize the use of up to $100,000 of the Growing Communities Fund received in March 2023 to fund emergency sanitary sewer repairs at the McCombs Bridge South.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the final approval for council remuneration and expense policy, allowance policy 1.116. At the April 17th regular council meeting, there were a number of amendments suggested or requested to the draft council remuneration and expense policy. It was specifically the additional amendments included reference to mayor and councilors receiving dental and medical benefits, budget allocation for expense amounts, and wording that states council members may receive compensation for attending meetings held outside held by outside agency, governments, boards, or committees. These changes have been made and they are included in the package. The recommendation is that council for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs give final approval to the council remuneration and expense allowance policy 1.16.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor Buckley. Discussion? I have discussion on it here. I know that there's two counselors here that there seemed to be some confusion on the extended payment of the extended medical and the dental premiums. So staff have asked that if council wishes to make some direction as far as what we would like to see with regards to extended medical and the dental premiums, which have been and are paid 100% by the village. So I would, I'm going to try here. So I'm going to move that the extended medical and dental premiums to be paid 50% by the village and 50% by the counselor. It's for fiscal responsibility, because if you don't use it, it's still being paid for the premiums by the village. So do I have a seconder for that motion? So again, the motion was to extend the medical and dental premiums to be paid 50% by the village and 50% by the counselors. And I see no seconder, so that motion fails. So back to the main motion, and that's that council for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs give final approval to the council remuneration and expense allowance policy 1-16. And it was moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor Buckley already. And ready to call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion passes with the mayor opposed. Next order of business, please.
The next item on the agenda is, sorry, just have to change the pages here, was the appointment to the Kent Harrison Joint Emergency Program Committee. The issue is to request approval from mayor and councilors to add Tourism Harrison River Valley to the Kent Harrison Joint Emergency Program Committee and approval for the village to host the next meeting in August 2023. So at the April 18th, 2023, Kent Harrison Joint Emergency Program Committee meeting, a delegation came from Tourism Harrison River Valley. They came to speak to the committee and requested permission to join the committee. Specifically, the Visitor Services Manager advised the committee that Tourism Harrison River Valley is working on an emergency plan, and the purpose of attending the meeting was to gain a more concise understanding of how their organization can integrate with the Emergency Preparedness Committee. They noted that they have developed an extensive database of contacts for the hotels and campsites in the area that could be utilized in the event of an emergency. The committee discussed whether it would be advantageous to add Tourism Harrison River Valley to the committee, and it was agreed they would be a good addition, especially when sending out emergency communications from an emergency operations center to the hospitality organization. Wallace Maw, the CAO for the District of Kent, asked that this request be referred to the respective mayor and councilors for their approval to allow this organization to join the committee. I have attached the report from the District of Kent dated April 25th, 2023 regarding the appointment to the committee. And also, secondly, traditionally, the location of these meetings are shared between the two municipalities. The next meeting is tentatively scheduled to be held in the village in August. Staff would like to advise the District of Kent that the village would host the next meeting. The recommendation before council is that mayor and councilors for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs approve the appointment of Tourism Harrison River Valley to the KHJAP committee, and that mayor and councilors approve hosting the August 9th, 2023 KHJAP committee meeting.
Thank you. So I'm going to split the recommendation up. So the recommendation that we're going to I'm going to ask for movement is recommendation of number, actually, they're not numbered. Number one, that mayor and councilors for the village of Harrison Hot Springs approve the appointment of Tourism Harrison River Valley to the KHJEP committee. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councilor Vidal, seconded by Councilor Jackson. Discussion? Councilor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thanks for the report, staff. I just wanted to clarify a little bit that Tourism Harrison River Valley will not be actively participating in the function of the EOC. That wouldn't be their role. Should they be on the committee, or should we find it necessary to initiate the EOC? They're there pretty well just as a resource, although an excellent resource, because the ability that they have as part of the EOC's communication strategy, they have the ability to very quickly do fan outs to businesses and to any campgrounds or anything that come under their umbrella. So it was one question that I raised during the discussion at the committee meeting. My concern and having been involved in the operation of the OCs in the past, that if you get too many pieces of pie in the pot, it often doesn't flow as well. I do support the recommendation because it's not only, as we know, not restricted to Harrison, but Harrison River Valley also includes Kenton and Harrison Mills. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion, Councilor Buckley?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I guess I'm wondering why you would want to do it in two different motions, because this seems to me, because they all take turns, the ones that are in this group to go forward with this, and any other thing, we just take our turn basically. So I guess I'm asking if you care to speak to that now, or
No, we've already, I've made the decision to separate those two recommendations. We'll vote on each one of them, but I'll vote on them separately
okay.
instead of concurring. You'll understand once you're finished. Do you have any further discussion on?
No.
So I see no other discussion on it. So again, the discussion here now is the appointment of Tourism Harrison River Valley to the Emergency Program Committee. I have spent so much of my working career again in safety, health and safety. The more people in any emergency planning, I've got more emergency planning than you'd ever want to have to deal with. As a marine engineer, working on board ships, you are the fire department, you are the police department, you are the mechanic, you are the doctor, you are everything. So when it comes to an emergency and you have to deal with an issue, you really have to have a good knit group that's working together and clearly understands what their responsibilities are. By bringing in Tourism Harrison, it may sound like a great idea, but I'm absolutely strongly opposed to it. Tourism Harrison, I mean, and this is meant as no disrespect for Tourism Harrison. Tourism Harrison has done a fantastic job of Tourism Harrison. And I mean, that's what their strategy is. Their strategy is not the focus of the Emergency Program Committee. The Emergency Program Committee is exactly what that is. And it's funded by Harrison and jointly by with Kent. And the employee is a Kent employee, I believe. So to bring in a third party, it would be like bringing in the RCMP into it, and then do you bring search and rescue into it, and then do you bring in, like, where do you where do you draw the line? You start bringing all these different committee groups into it. And even as Councillor Jackson says here, we can't even make up our mind up on a swing set. So it's pretty hard, and I would feel hard for the emergency program committee member. I believe his name is Ryan. I would love to have heard his opinion on it. But I think that this is a big mistake for us to appoint Tourism Harrison River Valley. If he would like to, or again, I'm just not comfortable with this. Is there any other further discussion on it? Councillor Buckley, I think you said you wanted to say something after I said that.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The only thing that I'm getting from this is that they are asking at this committee, the Tourism Harrison River Valley should be a good addition, especially when sending out emergency communications. And as Councillor Vital has said, they won't be in any operations whatsoever other than the fanning out. So they're not going to be offering, we should be going here, doing there, from what I understand. And I don't see where it's going to hurt anything to have more people fanning out if it's a fire or a flood or anything else that's going to help us along. And I understand where you're coming from, but I don't believe that their intent is to come in and tell the emergency response people how to do their job either. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's an interesting scenario. I remember many years back when we had some training on it, and I don't think it was tourism intent to hurt anything. I think that they wish well, but what happens is it just happens. You can't have people involved when there's such specific tasks that have to be done when you have a different focus on your mind. I remember when I took my one of my first emergency training courses with actually it was with the city of White Rock. And my job was to actually keep the mayor preoccupied during the event so that the emergency services could do their job. And the mayor you had to make the mayor think he was doing something, but all you had to do was keep him out of everyone's hair. So it's not just in an emergency, it's planning for it. So I know as politicians here, we like to get involved and we have our different, thoughts of it, but we're politicians. And I think politicians should really stay out of the decision makers when it gets to something as important as the emergency program committee. I mean, we've got wildfires, we've got flooding. I mean, we got all kinds of disasters that can happen. This is, in the summertime, we've got thousands of people here for visitors. We've got one road in. We have so many issues to deal with. I understand the tourism, it may sound like a good thing, but their focus is again on tourism, and it should stay to tourism. The tourism aren't focusing on us as residents, they're talking about tourism. They want more people to come up here. If we put a sign up here and said, this is the emergency evacuation route, they may say, well, we don't want to put that sign up there because we don't want to scare the people away. We all have different thoughts of it. And I just strongly believe that again, that the committee should be kept between the District of Kent and the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. Any further discussion? Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I think as I've been on that committee for several years, and when I first came on council, we created the Emergency Social Services Committee when we used to meet at the Gospel Chapel. But I believe that there's several agencies that do sit on that committee, from the ambulance to the police to the search and rescue to the people from Seabird Island. Sometimes provincial people are there as well, depending on the subject matter. But there are quite a few agencies that do sit on there. I see no reason why Tourism Harrison couldn't be of substantial help in case of an emergency with the resources that they have in communication as well. But that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready to call Councillor? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The way I see it is that Tourism Harrison River Valley, when I set this up originally, it was hands off from the village. It was a standalone committee that got the 2% hotel tax and spent it the way they didn't need any approval from the village to do what they do. So in actuality, they could become a part of this without our recommendation because they are separate altogether. I guess this is just courtesy to ask if we agree with that. But it's, you know, we have no say in what Tourism Harrison does. They run their business themselves. So one way or the other, they probably will end up on this committee.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Council. Further discussion, ready to call the question then? So this is again, so that mayors and councils for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs approve the appointment of Tourism Harrison River Valley to the KHJEP committee. And call the question, all in favor? Motion passes with the mayor opposed. So the next item was that mayors and councils approve hosting the August 9th, 2023 KHJEP committee meeting. I have a mover. Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? No discussion, call the question, all in favor? All in favor, opposed? Nobody opposed? Motion passes with the mayor opposed. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is 12I, and it's regarding the committee of the whole meeting for June 12th. At the April 3rd council meeting, the council requested the following items be added to a future committee of the whole meeting, and that was the synthetic outdoor rink operation and a request for Ryan Chariot, the emergency preparedness coordinator, to come speak with council on the status of the evacuation. And at the April 17th council meeting, council approved the recommendation to have Mr. Bruce Blackwell come to a future COW meeting to speak to council about the 2023 draft urban forest management plan. We have both, staff has contacted both Mr. Blackwell and Mr. Chariot, and they have advised they are available to attend a COW meeting on June 12th, if that is the wish of council. The recommendation is that council save the date for the special committee of the whole meeting on June 12th, 2023 at 1 p.m.
Thank you.
Move recommendation, Mayor Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is a report from the planning consultant. It's regarding approval for the permanent outdoor patio expansion application for LTK Investments at Limited, doing business as Old Settler Pub at 222 Cedar Avenue.
Were you going to complete that there, or are you just going to stick with the? Sorry, this is our planner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a request for local government approval for permanent status to a temporary expansion service area license application under the Liquor and Cannabis Licensing Act regulations. Sorry about that. In May 2020, the owners of the pub requested local government approval for a COVID temporary expansion for their liquor primary establishment. In June 1, 2020, council approved and supported the application from the owners of the pub for a temporary extension. This extension expired on March 31, 2023. However, the branch has invited all licensees who wish to obtain permanent status for their outdoor patio to apply for a permanent license. During a council meeting held on May 16, 2022, council denied their permanent status request. As a part of the application process, the branch requires local government to review the application and gather public input from the community within the immediate vicinity of the pub. With the earlier application, the village set up a public input process that ran from April 13th, 2022 to May 2nd, 2022. The process included the use of the village's website and the public notice board and the posting of the notice inside the pub. One response was received and indicated that they had a concern with a noisy cooler fan. Since that time, the owners of the pub have taken measures to mitigate this fan noise by installing an insulated cover over the fan in August 2022. As of this date, May 1st, 2023, no complaints have been received at the office. The pub owners are looking to turn their lower outdoor patio area that has an occupant load of 100 people into permanent status. The pub area is entirely enclosed and must comply with all provincial regulations. The hours of business will not change, and they will remain operating from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. Monday to Sunday. The pub owners would like to reapply for permanent status. As a part of their application process, they have submitted letters of support of approximately 100 residents, and it's 86 letters of support were received, and there was also letters of support from Tourism Harrison, the Harrison Agassiz Chamber of Commerce, the Harrison Festival Society, and the Muddy Waters Cafe. I'd like to stress at this particular point in time, those letters of support are from an economic perspective only. The reason I'm saying that is because the regulations require the local government to look at the noise impact situation, whereas the letters of support that we've received are economic letters of support. We have not set up a new public information collection process, but having said that, because there was only the one letter that was received dealing with the noisy cooler, and that was resolved in August of 2022. And as I've mentioned, we've not received any letters or any complaints at the office. So with that, your worship, we're recommending that LTK Investments Limited, doing business as the Old Settler Pub, application to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for permanent status of their outdoor patio extension service area be approved.
Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Just before you start, Councillor Facio, can you just turn?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
With the many letters of support provided and the one complaint of a noisy fan that has been dealt with, I see no reason that I would not be in favor of the application for their permanent outdoor patio expansion. The Old Settler Pub attracts a lot of visitors into Harrison on a regular basis, and I feel it is important to recognize their accomplishments and good business acumen. Well done.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing, I have a few comments. I mean, if I was to sign this petition, I wouldn't hesitate to sign it. But I guess what I have to remember is I don't live right next door to it. So I'm a procedural person again. So I would ask, you know, I'm not saying that they're not a good, it's not a good business. I'm not saying they haven't been good to the neighborhood. We're just talking about process. We're talking about the residents that live near it. I mean, residents have a reasonable responsibility, I believe, themselves to find out what's around them before when they buy the property and be aware of what the application, what it is. But this now is an addition to what it was. But in all fairness, if you look at the outside seating area now, it's glazed in the winter months, but in the summer months, it's open. So I would think that noise would be pretty well, I mean, that noise could be quite loud, could, in our village, would go a long way. It's just on its own. By adding more people out on the area there, would it make it noisier? Absolutely. You know, and I would ask, like, what mitigation has the Old Settler Pub done with regards to noise? If they can even do anything. I don't know if they can or not. I live 2 houses off of Hot Springs Road. I can hear a car or motorcycle. I can hear an awful lot of noise. But to me, that's life. I don't have an issue with it until I'm in bed. Then I take issue with it. So I don't know what quiet time is here, but is it I would assume it's somewhere around 10 o'clock. Does staff have, it's at 10 o'clock. So, I mean, I would totally be in support of the project, but maybe there could be some concession that, you know, just due to the noise, that there would be a 10 PM closing of that, of the outdoor area there. Anyhow, any other further discussion on this? Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this family have done a very good job of trying to accommodate the original complaint with the muffling of the generators they've got there. So they've gone over and above board to try and look at the concerns of their neighbors. I mean, I approve of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would just ask for a friendly emotion, a friendly amendment, then Councillor, it was actually Councillor Buckley that moved this, that the time period be at 10 PM for closing. You in agreement with the,
Mr. Mayor Wood, I would like to keep it as is presented. I also believe they've been very good corporate citizens. And being the fact that there hasn't been any complaints coming into the office about anything, I know that when they did cover in that area out there, that was first class. They did everything to beautify the location. And I don't think it would be in their best interest to have a lot of complaints coming from the residents. And from what I have seen for the times that I have visited that, it's not the Wild West over there for sure. So I would be in favor of the motion that's on the table. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor. Further discussion on it? So back to the main motion, which is that LTK, Investments Limited, application to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for permanent status of their outdoor patio expansion service area be provided. All those, call the question, all those in favor? Okay, motion passes with the mayor opposed. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the indemnification bylaw number 1190, 2023. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just have to get it in my package here.
Yeah.
So attached to the agenda package is the amended Village of Harrison Hot Springs indemnification bylaw 1190, which received first three readings at the April 17th, 2023 meeting. There was a request made by the mayor to add a section that had been taken out of the bylaw that had been used for the template, which referred to section 287 in the Local Government Act. But there was, that section has been changed to section 738 in the Local Government Act. So that section has been changed, but the request to add the wording, but does not include an independent service provider, professional advisor, or contractor engaged by the village from time to time on a fee-for-service basis. So council took that request from council, from the recommendation, and has added it into the report under 2D, where it refers to section 238 rather than the section 287, and added, but does not include an independent service provider, professional advisor, or contractor engaged by the village from time to time on a fee-for-service basis. Because this is a bylaw, it would need to get final reading by council to be adopted.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that council for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs give final reading and adoption to the Harrison Hot Springs indemnification bylaw number 1190, 2023. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? I just have one comment to make on it, and it looks like it's just a typo. I don't know if we need to make an amendment on it. I would ask our chief administrative officer, but just on page 141, under the actual bylaw itself, at the second paragraph from the top, it says, and whereas under section 720, I believe that should actually have said 740. I believe it's just a misprint. Do I need to make an amendment here, or?
I believe, Mayor Wood, that we can, we can make that change.
Okay,
It doesn't, change the intent of the bylaw, but it does correct the mistake.
thank you. Okay, so then we've been given, it's been moved by Counselor Vidal, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, ready to call the question, all in favor? And passes, motion passes unanimously. Next item of business, please.
Sorry, the next item of business is the highways and traffic bylaw amendment number 1191, 2023. And there's no report attached to this. This is, council brought this, or staff brought this to council at the last meeting to get clarification on the parking rates for the two zones. And it is, council at that time agreed to make the zone 2 the same hourly parking fee as zone 1, but keeping everything else the same, including the $20 per day in zone 2 as opposed to 14 hours for 4 hours in zone 1.
Thank you. So the recommendation is the highway and traffic bylaw amendment number 1191, 2023 be given first, second, and third readings. Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Discussion, ready to call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Facio opposed. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the report by the finance manager, and it's regarding the tax rate bylaw number 1188, 2023.
Go ahead.
Thank you, your worship. There's no report for this tonight. We're just here to adopt this bylaw.
Thank you. So the recommendation then is that the tax rate bylaw number 1188, 2023 be given final reading and adopted. Moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Ready to call the question, all in favor? Opposed, if motion passes unanimously. Next item of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, with your, excuse me, interrupting you, but we just have a couple of minutes left in our time schedule.
Yes, I think we have one last one here. Let's just get through this one.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The last report is Park Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1192, 2023. And at the April 17th council meeting, the village's bylaw enforcement officer submitted a report requesting that council amend the park regulation bylaw to allow for a slightly larger sunshade or canopy tent on the beach, as enforcement of the existing regulations had been a challenge to enforce. The recommendation was that the park regulation bylaw 1150, 2020 is hereby amended by deleting under the regulation section 4A in its entirety and substituting the following words. A sunshade or sun canopy tent with a maximum dimension of 3.65 by 3.65 square meters, which is 12 feet by 12 feet, and a maximum height of 2 meters that can be secured to the ground and used for the purpose of blocking sunlight. And that the Park Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1192, 2023 be given first 3 readings.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Discussion? Councillor Facio.
Right, thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm not opposed to the tents for shade on the beach, but I will be voting against this for the size of the 12 feet by 12 feet.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Counselor Vidal and Facio opposed. Next order of business, I think we're at 10 o'clock. Sorry for a question period. No new business here, so I would call for adjournment. Moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor Vidal, I'm getting tired. Vidal. Call the question, all in favor? Counselor Jackson? Thank you. We are adjourned, passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I